2-5-1, a fairly simple chord progression that leads to a lifetime of study. Let's take a look at what some of the masters are doing and give you some exercises to get you practicing. Hi, and welcome to the Saxophone Academy. I'm Dr. Wally Wallace, and if you're interested in saxophone masterclasses and product reviews, please do subscribe and be sure to hit the like button, because making videos is a lot of hard work. Now today we're continuing our discussion of jazz blues, the improvisation over the 12-bar blues. Now in the previous series of lessons, we covered the basics of the form, we talked about Roman numeral analysis, and how to navigate the first 8 bars of the 12-bar blues form, these chord changes. Now we're going to continue to the last 4 bars, which include, most commonly in these jazz chord changes, a 2-5-1 progression. Now, quick recap. What do we mean when we say 2-5? Why am I saying these numbers? Well, it's part of what we call Roman numeral analysis. So let's take a look at the key of G. So chords, while seemingly complex and numerous in a lot of jazz, are not random. They're generally functioning within a key. So looking at this in the key of G major, we can build a chord or triads where you skip every other note off any scale degree in the key of G. Now the 2 chord is built off the 2nd scale degree, A, and if we stack triads, A, C, E, and then add the 7th G natural, we get a minor 7th chord. So in the key of G, A is the 2 chord. It's a minor 2. Same thing with the 5. If we build a chord off the 5th scale degree, we get D, F sharp, A, C natural, and then we have what's known as the dominant 7th chord, all operating in the key of G still. So this 2-5-1, the 2 chord leading to the 5 dominant, has a natural pull back to 1, which is kind of its function, but very commonly in jazz, it doesn't pull back to 1, it goes somewhere completely different. Now that's a topic for another time, but today, in looking at the 12-bar blues, this very common blues progression, the 2-5 leads nicely back to 1, which is why this is a great learning place, kind of a playground, to start to explore how to operate 2-5 chord progressions. So how do we play these 2-5 chords? Do we simply outline and play the chord tones? Of course not. We're going to start there. We're going to outline the chords to get the notes under our fingers and the sounds of the chords in our ears. Then we're going to move on and study what some of the masters did. We're going to take a look at Paul Desmond, Art Pepper, Charlie Rouse, and Dexter Gordon, what they played over the 2-5, specifically when they recorded the blues. And then I'm going to give you some simple, getting more complex exercises to give you a workout in the key of G major. Concert B flat for alto, concert F for tenor, which is the key we've been working in on this blues improvisation series. So let's start by getting the notes under our fingers and the sounds in our ears. We're going to start by simply doing ascending arpeggios or ascending chord tones for each of the chords. Easy enough, but we don't want to always get in the habit of playing ascending, which we can commonly do, so make sure we also do the same thing, descending. So far so good, but if we listen to great jazz solos, it's neither either ascending or descending, it's a mixture of both. We want to make sure we have good contrary motion. So let's practice ascending one chord, descending the next, and vice versa. Then we start to play the scales or the modes based off this G major scale. Now, if you want to think of it as A Dorian, D Mixolydian, G major, or G Mixolydian if you're adding the flat 7th in this blues, that's fine. I prefer to think of it all as just G major, starting on the 2nd, then the 5th, and back to the root scale degree. So again, we're going to practice this ascending and descending using the modes and the major scale. So at this point, you've got it under your fingers and you can probably hear the chord progression and you know the notes. So you're all set to play the world's most boring solo. Where do we go from here? The temptation is then to start noodling around with the scales and the chord tones. But we're not going to accidentally find ourselves hitting jazz style. You don't stumble into good jazz language. We have to study it and learn it, preferably by listening, then playing it. Just like learning a language, learning the grammatical rules is not enough. We have to listen to native speakers speak the language, then we pick up those phrases, the inflection, and we learn that language's idioms. So let's start with Paul Desmond. So listen again to this great 2/5 by Paul Desmond. This is recording Blues for Fun off the Easy Living album. And listen to how he uses both the ascending and descending outlining of the chords. This is a very vertical solo, meaning instead of lots of scale stepwise motion, he has lots of leaps, more or less outlining the chords, but in a very melodic way, and contrasting the ascending and descending motion. Now, rather than just pedantically outlining the chords, he also has a couple of really lovely chromatic passing tones, which turns this arpeggiated exercise into a really beautiful melodic line. Example 2 from Paul Desmond. Again, same solo, different 2/5 within the solo. Check out this melodic line leading from F down to C and how he navigates it using both arpeggiation and a more stepwise melodic motion. Next up, let's listen to Art Pepper off Red Pepper Blues on one of my favorite albums of all time, Art Pepper Meets the Rhythm Section. Incredible album, amazing rhythm section, which he met. You really should have this on your playlist somewhere and have it running in the background. Whenever you're running errands, you will swing harder subconsciously. So let's take a look at this 2/5 in the key of D. Now notice the heavy blues sound with that F natural over the 5 chord. Now if we take a look at it theoretically over the 5 chord, it kind of looks like a flat 6. Is it a borrowed tritone substitution? Is it? To me, it just sounds like he's borrowing the blues scale of the home key. D, F natural. That bluesy sound as it rubs against the tonic. We can't resurrect Art Pepper and ask him what he was thinking, and I can't find my Ouija board, but in my mind, it really feels like he's just playing D blues over this for this moment. But listen to that F natural, that great tension it causes, and that bluesy sound. Now another example from Art Pepper, same solo, different 2/5. Listen to the way he uses chromatic passing tones. Next up comes from one of my favorite tenor players, Charlie Rouse. Now, no shame if you're not that familiar with Charlie Rouse. He's not quite the household name like a John Coltrane, but he really made a name for himself playing with Thelonious Monk and really gave the saxophone sound to those records. Absolutely love the way he plays. Let's take a listen to the way he plays a 2/5 on Straight No Chaser. And here we see a very interesting melodic line, ascending with chromatic sequences, just helping it step upward. Another interesting thing about this particular phrase that my friend and collaborator Christopher Peebles pointed out, Charlie Rouse swings on the beat, not just always by emphasizing the offbeat. It's really interesting. Listen to the way he makes the sequence work, but then also more importantly, go listen to Monk albums playing with Charlie Rouse. Now, another lesson more important than chromatic alterations and passing tones and blue notes, let's listen to Dexter Gordon from August Blues. And Dexter Gordon, of course, proving that sometimes less is more. Now, talking about music is like dancing about architecture. Not that useful. Talking about it, noticing these things is one thing, but playing it, experiencing it, instead of intellectually thinking what the chromatic alteration is doing or what the flat third sounds like, play it, feel it, hear it. So let's get you playing these exercises. And while you're playing these exercises, anytime there's a note outside the key of G, a chromatic passing tone or an alter note, I want you to think, what is it doing? How does it sound? How does it feel? And then after you can play it, think, what is this doing? And let me know in the comments below. So work on these exercises. You can slow them down if you want. And I'll see you in just a minute after these exercises. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. In the meantime, slow these down and start to work on them. Get them under your fingers. Get the sounds in your ears. Then, if you feel like, start analyzing, but only after you can play them. All right, I will see you soon, possibly next week, with answering the question, is the best Meyer actually a Meyer? I will see you very soon. I hope you have a fantastic week, and go practice.